Hey, how's it going, ladies and gents? You're back with Neff for another broadcast, the second broadcast of the weekly series. Let's get right into it. First article we're going to talk about is from Polygon, and it's actually talking about She-Hulk, the last series on Disney Plus that came out. Now, She-Hulk came out, I want to say, at least 6 to 8 months ago. It's not the newest series that came out, but it is a series that got a lot of attention, good and bad. So let's just look into what Polygon had to say, because there's some new information that we got about this show. I'll read the title for you, go a little into the article, and like I said, with all these articles, I'll be posting the direct link in the description so you can go check them out yourself and read the whole thing if you'd like to. Let's get started. She-Hulk star says there's no hope for season 2. Ouch. Disney was like, no thanks. Let's read a little more into this, guys. Alrighty. Tatiana Maslany, the actor who played Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk, and She-Hulk Attorney at Law, has dashed any hopes of a second season of Marvel's divisive Disney Plus show. Maslany was asked by the host, should we hope for a season 2? She answers, I don't think so. Maslany replied, I think we blew our budget, and Disney was like, no thanks. I'll let you guys read the rest. As I said, the link will be in the description. I think that's an interesting take. For the most part, I didn't hear any positive things from She-Hulk. I know that Disney was trying to clean up the bad press about She-Hulk on Rotten Tomatoes, stuff like that. They had some reviewers go in there and give it good reviews. But for the most part, I didn't hear anything positive about it. I do know some people that personally watched it. They didn't have the worst take on it. They said it could have been better. I also know some people that watched it and then stopped watching it, which is very interesting. Stop watching a show right in the middle of the season. I have not personally watched She-Hulk. It wasn't anything that I was interested in personally. And on top of that, I don't have Disney Plus, but very interesting to see that they shut down this hope for a second season at all. Disney did. I think it's interesting that she said they went over budget, and so that's why they cut down on what they were going to do in the future with this project. I don't think it was so much a budget issue. I believe maybe they did put too much into it, thinking they would get something out of it. This isn't a movie, this is a show, so you're not going to get that immediate return. And I believe Disney Plus weighs their metric of returns through subscribership based on the show's performance. So I don't think they saw the return that they wanted to. I think the budget was probably a little bloated. And then on top of that, you had the bad press. People didn't like it. I know that they actually didn't stick to the original story of She-Hulk. They kind of tampered around with that. So once again, we've talked about this before. Disney not sticking to the lore, not appealing to its core fan base. And I think people didn't like that. So I think that's why you're getting that negative backlash on the show in general. But this is not surprising that they did not extend for a season 2. Overall, I don't think it was a positive experience for Disney or the people that were working on the show after they put it out. I think they had a product that they thought they were confident in going into it, and then once it hit the internet, people dissected everything about it. Bad press started up before going into the show. Once people saw the show, everything was kind of, what can I say? It was affirmed, the thoughts were affirmed that this was not a good show. I think that's what took over, and the negativity basically killed any hope for seeing this in a second season. And the fact that, like I said, people watched the show and then completely tuned out halfway through the season tells you a lot about the show in general. But anyway, like I said, the link to that article is in the description, so you guys can read on that, check that out a little more. And also, too, if anybody watched She-Hulk, please comment in the comment section. I want to know what you think about it. I'd like to hear what you guys think about it. Let's move on to the next story we got here. This is from CBR, and it's about Madame Web. I'll read the title for you guys. Madame Web, tracking for worse box office opening than Morbius. Current box office projections for the Marvel superhero movie Madame Web hint at the worst opening weekend yet for Sony's Spider-Man universe. According to Box Office Pro, the upcoming superhero team-up movie is currently tracking to earn between $25 million and $35 million in its opening weekend at the box office. If Madame Web does end up launching somewhere in that range, it would mark the lowest opening weekend yet for the SSU franchise. That's very interesting. I'll let you guys read the rest in that link in the description as well. We've talked about this on the Popcorn Square podcast. Like I said, I think I can speak for everybody that's on the podcast with me. We're interested and curious into seeing what they do with this story with Madame Web. There's a lot of questions going into it, and I would say that there's a lot of weight on this movie. This is when they're taking their spin at the whole Spider-Man universe and opening it up for another main character. It's going to be a lot of pressure on this team to make a good movie, especially Sony. Sony, as we know, they own that Spider-Man IP basically, so they have the reins to all the Spider-Man stories. And so, like I said, we have a lot of Spider-Man projects coming up this year, and this is going to be the first taste we get, and they don't want to go into this having any type of negative press, a disastrous box office, because what that does is it creates a negative environment for anything else that's going to come out Spider-Man. Now, sure, if they put out Venom 3, which is supposed to be coming out this year as well, if everything goes correctly, I think that movie will perform well, especially if they have a Spider-Man cameo in there, which they have teased. But Madame Web is going to be the teaser there, and you don't want to have any type of negative press revolving around anything Spider-Man going into all these Spider-Man projects that Sony has coming in the future. That was an interesting article right there. Like I said, I'm going to see Madame Web. I'm going in with an open mind. I'm going in blind as well. I do know a little bit of Madame Web, the lore and the background. So I want to see how they take on this story. I want to see what they can do with it. I watched the trailer. I didn't think it was the worst trailer in the world. So like I said, when it comes out on February 14th, I'm going to check that out, and I'll have a review for you guys on that. Another thing, too, the fact that it comes out on February 14th, I think that's kind of like a little ploy there to come out on Valentine's Day. I'd say it's a feminine holiday, you could say. I don't think men really care so much about Valentine's Day. So I think that's interesting that they are dropping that movie on Wednesday. I don't think it's a positive thing necessarily. I think you want to have that Friday release because people have more time to actually go see the movie rather than do it in the middle of the week where people don't necessarily have time to go watch that movie. I think that can hinder the box office as well. But like I said, that article from CBR is going to be in the description as well. Moving on to our next article. I thought this one was very interesting. This one is from New York Mag, Vulture, talking about Star Wars here. Let me read off the title for you. Every Star Wars movie that allegedly is or isn't happening. Let's look into this. I'm not going to go through the list. The list is extensive. I'm going to go through a couple here. We'll just have a brief discussion about each. I'm going to go through three. Okay, let's just start off with a Boba Fett movie. It says it was first reported in February 6, 2013. Now we know if you've been paying attention to Lucasfilm, Star Wars, Disney Plus, they did put out a Boba Fett series. I didn't hear too much positive things from that. For most people that I know did watch it. Boba Fett's one of the coolest characters in Star Wars, and I feel like you could do a lot with him. So the fact that people had a lot of negative things to say about the Boba Fett series, that's not really boding well for Star Wars. I think Boba Fett was probably the focus of maybe being a film, maybe a Boba Fett not necessarily origin story, but a Star Wars story, kind of like what they did with Han Solo. And I think based off the performance of Han Solo, they kind of stepped back and said, do we want to go stick our neck out there and put $200 million into another movie that might not work out? I mean, it depends. I didn't watch the Boba Fett show. Like I said, amongst the Star Wars shows that have come out and people that I've spoken to, it's not their favorite Star Wars show. So I don't know. Boba Fett's a cool character. I feel like they kind of wasted him, and maybe they can go back a little while later and try to figure something out. Maybe do another Boba Fett series, take another shot at it, maybe bring the budget down for it, or maybe they could do a movie if, you know, Disney and Star Wars gets their stuff together. Let's go on to the next thing, though. Rian Johnson's trilogy, announced November 9th, 2017. I thought this was really interesting because I believe Rian Johnson shot Star Wars Episode 8, which I'd say out of the trilogy is people's least favorite film. I guess you could argue Episode 9 was as well. To me, it's interesting that Rian Johnson was going to get a 3-film trilogy, seeing out the backlash of the Episode 8. Now, I think maybe this was slated before Episode 8 came out. I don't really remember the year Episode 8 came out. I believe Episode 7 came out in 2015. So Episode 8 might have come out in 2017. So maybe what they were doing at Lucasfilms was kind of saying, hey, you know, based off the performance of Episode 8, based off press around it, what the people think, right, what our core fan base thinks, we'll give this guy a 3-movie deal or something like that. And I don't think it panned out for him. Like I said, Episode 8 was not a favorite amongst people that are fans of Star Wars, so I think it's interesting that they were going to give this guy a trilogy. I don't know if his trilogy was going to follow the main Star Wars characters that we know and like, but it's just interesting that they were thinking about doing that. Let's move on to the next. Now, I'm looking at this one. This one was interesting to me. Kevin Feige's movie. Everybody knows Kevin Feige. The guy's basically the front man for Marvel. It's interesting that he was actually going to have a movie. I don't know what he was going to do. I don't believe Kevin Feige writes or directs anything, so maybe he was just going to be a producer on it, but it'd be interesting to see what his take on a Star Wars story would be and what story he would go along with. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, I don't know what Kevin Feige would really do, so it's very interesting. I wonder what story he would take on. But I'll leave that there for that article. I thought that article was really interesting. It's a lot of pages. They have shelved a lot of projects that they have announced. So like I said, I'll leave that link in the description for you guys to read through if you are interested. The last topic I'm going to talk about is from Rolling Stone. Interesting topic here. I'll read the title. Jon Stewart returning to The Daily Show as Monday host through 2024 election. Beloved former host reveals he's rejoining Comedy Central late night series on a once-a-week basis until 2025. Now, guys, as you know, I talked about this on last week's episode. Late night television, way too political. I think Jon Stewart is great at being a comedic act. I don't think Jon Stewart needs to delve back into late night TV just to cover the 2024 election. I look at that and I say, what are you doing this for? Are you doing this to bring joy to people? Or are you trying to make people laugh? Or are you trying to stress people out? Because it seems to me if he's going in just to cover the election cycle, it's going to be another political approach, right? It's not going to be funny, okay? And it's just not the thing you should be doing. But, you know, this is what happens in these mainstream media outlets. Comedy Central is one of them. Everything is it surrounds around politics. And it's like we need to get back to the source of why late night TV was good. Late night TV was good because it was apolitical. It was about comedy. It was about making people laugh. It was basically like cinema. You go to the movie to relax, get away from what's going on in the real world, and basically live in fantasy land for 2 to 3 hours, right? And that's what the movie's for. But you know, if Jon Stewart's coming back just to push politics, I don't think that's going to work out well. There might be a fan base for that, but I don't think any people or anybody that is, you know, into comedy, anybody that's into, you know, getting any like joy out of anything entertainment-wise is going to be tuning into this because it's going to be the same thing you see on Jimmy Kimmel, the same thing you see on Seth Meyers. So it's going to be no different here. Jon Stewart coming back is cool, but I don't think it's going to be anything that I'm tuning into. One, I don't have time to watch late night TV, and two, I'm not trying to watch late night TV and be bombarded with more politics, but good luck to Jon Stewart. Anyway, guys, I think that's going to do it for this week's broadcast number 2, hosted by me, Neff. I'm going to leave you guys here. As I said, I think these are some great articles. I think they're good reads. I'm going to leave the link in the description, as I've said multiple times. Please go read the articles, like, subscribe, comment, tune into the Popcorn Square podcast we have on Mondays and Fridays, and let me know what you think about these articles. Let's start a conversation up. Anyway, I'll be back next week. Be safe.